folks, Clyde Lindsay here from Pixel Pro Displays. Thank you for taking the time to check out this tips and tricks video on our brand new Pro layout for PPD. So in January, starting in January 2019, we have introduced a new layout, options for folks who have a much larger display than our original layout, which has a less number of groups. This is an option for a significantly more number, higher number of groups. And what I want to do is I want to go through each of the different kinds of setups that we've got going on to help you understand where the sequencing come from. So let's go ahead and get started. The first slide here that you see is these are the sizes of our models and of our models that aren't sequenced in groups, that is. On the right hand side over here, you'll see we have not included in that here is the 50 by 16. This is the standard basic beginner size of a mega tree. That doesn't mean that that's the size of your tree. That just means that usually people will start with a 16 by 50. That tree there is the standard size that we have in the store with our tree sequences. And then beside it we have a 24 by 48 pixel matrix. There will be matrix sequences coming soon to the store. We have a lot of work to do on those as well, but we're getting there. Also, we have a P10 or P5 setup. This is considered a 128 by 96. So this is a much more dense, more pixelated version of a matrix. If you don't have P10 panels, the sequencing will translate into your own matrix. You will have to do, if it's significantly smaller, you'll have to do some adjustments to make things look just as nice. But the Pro version is meant more for getting a great quality look to the panel. And so it's going to be upsized. There's going to be a lot more customization to fit onto the bigger matrix. You may have to adjust things to fit better and change settings and so forth on your own when you do the import. So with the mega tree here, we have it as a 32 by 100. So 32 strands left to right and by 100 top to bottom. Now this is exactly double the density that our 16 by 50 tree is over here on the right hand side. So keep that in mind when you are watching this sequence. If you are bringing this import into from a tree that's this size into a tree that may be this size for you, that again, because the density is different, effects will render similar but not exactly the same. So one of the biggest questions we get is, why doesn't it look exactly the same? And the answer is because when you render effects on a bigger matrix, you get a much better definition. And when you render it on a smaller matrix, there's not as much different definition to be able to use. So therefore, it is skewed a different way. So keep that in mind when you're doing your import. There's really nothing that we can physically do to make an identical import from the layout, but you get a very good one-for-one whenever you are the same size or similar size or very close to the size. So some people, maybe they go up 24 by 75, so that's a little bit smaller, but same kind of a similar density. It's not as big as this, but it's downsized from it. And then another smaller size would be the 50 by 16, and then, you know, going up in increments. The next thing I want to show you is we have all of our different model groups, and somebody is just dinging me. Okay, so we have next to set of model groups that you can see here is everything that we have set up in the Pro layout. So basically how we break down all of our groups, and we'll go through them one slide at a time so that you can see. But you'll find that we have set it up basically as, this is our overview page of all the groups that are there. But basically we break things down in what I like to call them as logical groups. And there are a number of ways that we name these. Now, we started last year with the word all display, all house. We added this year all house decorations. We have all roof, all stars, all yard, and then we go down to like our logical groups, which I like to call them that. So those are all arches, all the candy canes. You have column matrices. You have door wreath, you have floods, gutters, house verticals, icicles, and so forth. And we're going to go through each one of these in the next slide so that you have a very good idea of when you're doing an import, these are exactly what you're importing from the Pro layout into your own layout. So first here you can see we have the arches. Each of our arches have 50 pixels in them. That's pretty much kind of the standard nowadays. If you order from James over at Boscoyo, he has his arches, they're 50 count pixel arches, rather simple to build, very basic. If you make your own using HDPE, I put bullet nodes inside mine on strips from Boscoyo, so that's something that you can consider doing. And they're 11 feet, but they have about 50 pixels. They have 50 pixels in them, so a very easy prop to add in. And we just sequence these usually at the group level, and sometimes we do some fancy things so that it only appears that only half of them were working and so forth to give it a different look. Next we have the candy canes. The candy canes, there's 4 of them in this preview here. If you have more, obviously, you can extrapolate that effect over the group. These are from Boscoyo. They are the 99 node candy canes, and these are available in the download section of Xlights, so it makes it real easy to add these into your layout and use the exact same kind of sequencing that we are using. Next we have the column matrices. These are the modular matrix panels. They're found on the Boscoyo website. A modular matrix panel is a 4x42 sheet or matrix panel. I personally have dual panels, two panels tied together, so they're physically 8x42. These look wonderful on my house and I love them. And we decided to add 2 of them in here on our columns here for the sides of the house. And they're fantastic. They show off some nice detail. They are not a I can get some actual text on these. A vertical text, you can do that, and some very basic images, but you can get some images on them as well. So those are very nice. Next we have this is a wreath made by Boscoyo period. That I've never seen another vendor do this. Actually, I think I know who designed the idea. I think his name was Travis Rice, and he did a fantastic job. And James took the idea and went full tilt and made this. But this is in a download that you can get from the Xlights program, and you can. This, of course, is sequenced in, and it is actually sequenced as you see this submodel. So we have submodeled each one of these stars so that we can knock sequencing out on each one of them. Next we have the floodlights. Now I like floodlights. They're awesome. I personally have wanted to put them in my display. I have a number of them sitting here and ready to go. I just haven't gotten around to ever being able to put them out and use them. So this will give me a very good reason to go ahead and do so, because a lot of the pro items here will give a great pop, and I imagine that a lot of people will appreciate the idea of having some floods going in their yard. So next, and once again, I remind you that these are all logical groups. Everything is grouped together in Xlights, and we're going to go over to the Xlights layout after this. We have a couple more slides to go. These are the gutter lines. Obviously, they're just the lower lines on the roof. The reason we did this is because most people may only have a roof outline, and some people may not have these icicles, so we made a logical group with just gutter lines that are at the front edge of your house. Next we have the house verticals. So these are any vertical line that's on your house, and everything has its own kind of vertical. Now you'll notice that we use some different vertical lines here, and we have some window frames and so forth. Those aren't included with the house verticals. But they are included in some other groups. I'll show you that in a second. Next we have the Icicle Drips. So this is all of the icicles in the entire display on the roof, everything lit up all together. These are a standard icicle. They have 7 drops in each set of drips, and they really make for a nice look. I actually have a plan to add these into my own display this year. Next we have the mini tree line. Now these are not any kind of special mini tree. We just made a 5-string 17 node per string. So if you multiply it out, One of the biggest questions we get is how do you build your mini trees? And there's a significant different number of ways that you can create your own mini trees. And what I'll say is at 15 or 5 times 17, that's a total of 85 pixels. And then the stars that are above them, they're 20 pixels each. So that brings your count up to about 95 pixels total. We'll get to the stars in a little bit. But I wanted to share that you can purchase these or you can build these yourself. If you keep it in this area here, 5, 6, 7 strings or 4 string, 5, 6, 7, 8 strings, and 10 to 15 or 10 to 20 nodes, that's going to be considered what we consider as a mega tree or a mini tree, that is, and just a little bit of background of the mini tree. So next we have the other verticals. So this would be the verticals on the sides of the windows, verticals on the sides of our doorways, verticals on the sides of the garage here, and these are verticals that are part of other models and these are other verticals basically are a submodel, and this is a way to get a different pop from a different group. And if we use the other verticals, sometimes I use them, sometimes I don't. It's nice to have one set of verticals like the house verticals that you saw before, which are on the edges of the corners of the house, doing one thing, and then you have the window verticals doing something different. Then you really get some interesting looks and some interesting pops. Next we have our pixel pole stars. We have 4 of them here, and these are a standard 90 count star with a ring in the center at 20, middle ring is at 30, and the outer ring is at 40. So these are a 90 count pixel star. These are available in multiple vendors sell these, and many people have wireframes. These are typically like a 24-inch with 3 rings or 23 or so. And you get obviously 90 pixels total. Those are a logical group. The next one are the pixel poles. Now underneath here, these are basically mini matrices. So you have a string that goes up and a string that comes down. These are 2 strands of 30. You obviously could make them 2 strands at 60 pixels or 90 pixels, however tall that you need to go, whatever you think looks good. We decided to make something that didn't clutter up the front and hide things, but we wanted to keep it nice and simple. But if you have something that's much taller, you are able to modify your own design. But just in general, this is how we designed it for you. And again, this is a logical group, so if you have pixel poles, in fact, my mini trees, not my mini trees, but my mini megas, they're probably about 8 foot tall. They have a center pole, and I'll be using those on my center pole of my mini mega trees. So that is something to consider. Next, we have the lower roof. And the lower roof here, you can see that we've included the eaves, the edges of the roof, so the front edges, and then all the icicles. So this is everything on the downside. One thing I love is being able to bounce from one prop to the next. So we created a lower roof group, and then, well, of course, we have the logical group upper roof. Next, we have the large snowflakes. You can see that these are submodeled, and these are 46-inch LLS snowflakes from Boscoyo. And you can see that these are the submodels. So this is just the arms and, well, the legs. I call these the legs, and then the little arms off of the legs. So a total of the actual arms. So this is kind of like the quote-unquote spinner of the snowflake. We have another set of submodels in here, and we call this the Snowflake Rings. And this is, once again, a logical group for the snowflakes, and they have the outer lines of the upper arms and then the inner circle, and it kind of gives us another layer or level. These are the submodels that are built into the props that are in the X-Lights program. So if you purchase these snowflakes to add into your layout, the downloaded file has the included submodels inside it, and if you build them the way that the model shows you, the layout will fit perfectly. If you don't build your submodel identical to this, you will be able to import the sequencing effects, but they will not translate the exact same way. So if you want it to look identical to what we have, you have to make sure that you go through and build the models the exact same way that we have them. Next, you have snowflakes that are up on the roof. This is kind of our snowflake group, our all snowflakes. So we have different sizes. We have a 30 count, a 48 count, and the 96 count snowflakes. These are the small, medium, and large. You might find those on Boscoyo. Then, of course, the Living Light Show LLS snowflakes there as well. Next, you have the big spinners, and this is a submodel. These are just the spinner arms. These are the 46-inch mega spinners from Boscoyo. Once again, these submodels are created and in the download folder. If you build the snowflake or the spinner as they are built in the model, you will be able to use the exact submodel that we're using. We did not create any specific submodel other than the one that was already there. Next, you have the spinner rings. These are the outer rings that are on the outside here of the mini spinners and the large spinners. So I did find a lot of use in sequencing with those. Next, we have the spinner small arms. So you have the large arms and you have the small arms, and these are obviously small submodels. So once again, that's in the download from Xlights, where we're using their exact model layout and the submodel effects on those as well. So make sure if you're using the sequencing and you're using the submodels that you build the prop exactly as it is in the wire diagram preview in Xlights. Next, you have the spinners all group. This is kind of self-explanatory. New in the Pro Layout is the spiral trees. Now, a lot of people have asked for these for a long time. I ran these in my display in 2017 and they were phenomenal. I have upgraded since, and those trees were fantastic. They're a little different to sequence. Chasing left and right is a little harder because when you render an effect left to right on a spiral, if your spiral isn't set up exactly as this spiral is, your effects will look kind of weird. But you can go up and down on these and they will look beautiful. So you have to be careful when you build your models so that they physically look the same as they do in Xlights, but if you do that, they'll look really good. And I loved sequencing these. So basically what you have here is a group of spiral trees, and they're one strand of 100 pixels each. So a very simple prop. If you were to go to Walmart or Kmart or Sears or Home Depot or Lowe's and get one of those spiral trees, pop off the incandescents or the LED lights, and then put on the pixel nodes, this is something that you could build. Next is our stars on trees. These are our mini tree stars, and these are one-for-one basic 20 pixel count stars that you could potentially just make on your own. I know that you can order them online as well. You could make them out of wireframe yourself. They're very simple to make. So we have stars on our mini trees. Next, you have the windows and doors, and this is kind of a logical group as well, as you saw earlier. Next, we have the Wreath Rings, and this is the wreath is not sequenced as a single prop. It's sequenced in a group, and if you open it up in the group, you'll see that there are 3 rings to it, and we just put those 3 submodeled rings into one group, and it's a total of 99 pixels. This happens to be the rings from the wreath from Boscoyo. Going on, we have the yard border. If you have ground lights, this is a great opportunity to add these in. Next, we have the Awl Yard. So now we're going to get into basically the larger groups within groups, or larger groups of props that are modeled inside a major group. So when we want to really do a nice fade across with all the props going one way and then everything on the house going another way, we can use the Awl Yard Group. And I do utilize this a little bit. I like to sequence at the group level and sometimes at the model level, but for the most part, the Awl Yard is a good go-to for me. Next, we have the All Stars. These are every star in the display. So if you have a bunch of stars in your display, and I do as well, this will, if there's sequencing on the All Stars level, it will activate every star in your display, including the Mega Tree star. All house decorations, or I'm sorry, all roof, that is basically as you see it, all roof, everything that's on the roof, so your icicles, your front eaves, and your top eaves going up the sides of your house there. Next is the all house decorations, as I was jumping ahead there before. These are the physical decorations, the bow here inside the wreath, and you have all the spinners, all the snowflakes, the star wreath, everything here that you see lit up is all house decorations. And it's a nice way to pop the difference between the roof and the snowflakes and decorations just in general, whatever's on your house. Next we have the all house. So what we basically have done here is everything that is physically attached to the house, everything physically on your house. And once again, I'm going to note this again. Notice the matrix panel is not here. Notice this matrix panel is not included with the group. There is nothing, everything that's on the house is physically in the all house group except for these floodlights, because sometimes you just want to use those for specific pops. Next we have the all display. So the way the all display is set up, and this is the final slide, the way that the final all display is set up is you have the group of all yard, everything on the ground, everything physically touching the ground with inside a group, and then you have everything all house, which was the last slide, everything physically touching the house, everything all together. So I know this was a rather long explanation, but if you take the time and you start building your groups in a logical fashion, and then the next step that we're going to go through in another video is we'll go through the actual X-Lights layout. And if you follow along with that video, you'll be able to begin creating your physical groups that will help you easily and one-for-one import in from the Pro Layout into your own layout. Now, the hardest part of doing any of this is all the map, and we'll get into that in yet another video. But thanks. I just want to take a second and say thanks for listening to the video. I know it's about 23 minutes long. Just hang in there. We're going to get to the next video, and you will be able to begin understanding the sequencing abilities that you'll have from the imports. So thanks for watching. We're going to get into the next one.